Hello, welcome to another episode of Faith and Freedom. I am Garrett Kane, the Christian Libertarian, and we're going to take a little break from the virus discussions that have been popular on this show. I'm kind of sick of it, and I know you're probably sick of it. So today we're going to discuss foreign policy, and specifically Ukraine. And I don't know exactly where that situation will be at when this episode gets released. Right now, as of I believe it's 127. Tensions are mounting. Russia has a bunch of troops at the Ukrainian border. NATO is building up troop presences in that area. And the message from the White House couldn't be more unclear as to what our intentions are going to be there. And there's a lot of speculation in the media, in society, in the culture about how starting a war would be a distraction from COVID. It would be a way for Biden to distract from all the other horrible things that are happening under his administration, the downswing in the economy, just general malaise among society. But I want to encourage you to maybe look at our broad foreign policy from more of a biblical Christian lens. And we as Christians, and I'm not trying to group us all together in too much of a herd, but we tend to be very patriotic, and that's fine. But I think we can go a little bit too far with that in terms of glorifying military activity and military service, and especially a point in time now where our military and our foreign presence is not what it was when our forefathers founded this country, and I would argue that it is not what our forefathers would want our military structure in defense, and I put defense in quotes, to be like. Now that said, I think anyone who serves our country or has served our country, we should give them the utmost respect for their willingness to make that sacrifice. And I think with that in mind, it makes it that much more important that we think clearly and deeply on this subject is Christians, because those are potentially our children and our grandchildren that we are giving basically over to the government to decide how to use their bodies and their talents, possibly to their detriment, unfortunately. So when we think about foreign policy and when we take those ideas to the voting booth or to the keyboard or to whatever platform or avenue we have for change, we need to think about where we are and where maybe we should move in terms of direction. Throughout the world, the United States has about 750 military bases in countries that are not ours. And within those military bases are billions, with a B, dollars worth of assets in military equipment, in surveillance equipment, in housing structures, that types of things, and not to mention the thousands and thousands of actual people there, which you can't really put a dollar on their life. So what I'm driving at here is I think we need to rethink our big picture foreign policy. We are not in a defensive posture as a military in our country. We are certainly not setting an example of being peacemakers with our current foreign policy. Let's just do a little thought experiment. Let's say there's a big piece of vacant land in Chautauqua County, which there are many. Let's just say that our U.S. federal government, under the auspices of eminent domain, which is a thing, which is how the interstates got built, took that property and sold it to France. And France used that chunk of property to establish a foreign military base on our property. Now, you might make the argument that our foreign military bases are in countries where the leadership of those countries agree to that presence, and that is correct. That is not false. But that doesn't change our thought experiment. I think right now with the Biden administration, it is not out of the realm of possibilities to think that that could happen, that he would sell a piece of property in the United States to the French military. But regardless, let's just say that happens, what type of feelings would that stir up among, let's say, the common folk of this country? Probably not good feelings toward France, especially if those French people that came over weren't very well integrated in our culture, for better for worse. Either unintentionally or intentionally did not get along with the people in that area. And we would also probably have some harsh feelings toward the leadership of our government at that point. And I think that's what happens in a lot of these situations where we place military bases around the country. Some probably more than others. We don't necessarily fit into that culture when we send folks over there. And the people in that country don't necessarily agree with their country's leadership's decision to let us occupy that land. But I think more than anything, it's just the example that we set in doing that. We need to question that. It's expensive. It's extremely expensive in taxpayer dollars to run a defense department the way that we run it. And I don't think risk reward, we're really seeing a payoff for it. We're not seeing a high amount of global security. Obviously, you have North Korea, who's tested 3 cruise type missiles, I think, in the last 2 weeks. You have this situation in Ukraine. You have China. You have the Middle East, which is in turmoil. You have I think I mentioned North Korea, but we're not making a positive impact through our culture and our military activities in the world. And I think it might be worth considering electing leaders that are willing to scale that back for the sake of saving our blood and treasure to defend our own country. Now, this is not to say that I'm against a just war when we are directly threatened by an enemy. Our soil is threatened, but you hear these neocon people taking this, well, we have assets and we have interests all over the globe. Well, who has those interests, honestly? Do me and my family have those interests, or are those interests big oil companies, big mining companies, things like that? And as a libertarian, I would be in favor of a system to where if those interests want to pay to buy ammunition and arms to defend those, or even to pay people that are willing to defend those interests, feel free, but don't take my friends and family who signed up for military service and put them in harm's way to protect the interests of Exxon or Halliburton or some other giant corporation. That's not just. That's not moral, and it's certainly not Christian in terms of us striving to make peace and love one another. So just some thoughts on that. Keep Ukraine and our leadership and just the leadership in that area in your prayers. And I really think that the best move was kind of summed up by a Facebook site I follow that's called Christian Libertarian, ironically. Their phrase was, "Stay at home, save lives should be our foreign policy, not our domestic public health policy." So think about that. Keep the region and that situation in your prayers, and I will see you on the next episode of Faith and Freedom.